let's pose a question. What's the significance of the following number? 1,483,300. This is going back again to some of the statistics we've looked at in the past. But what's the significance of this? Let me give you 30 seconds to have reflection and discuss the significance of this number. Over to you, 30 seconds. Ten more seconds. Okay, so this number, unsurprisingly, is about a gap. It's about a gap. It's actually evidence from the US, and it's called the million-word gap. This is about young children before they ever get to primary school. And the gap of nearly 1.5 million is the number of words heard by children who are read to every day, and the gap between those children who don't get read to every day, who don't have that early reading experience before reception. So some children are joining primary school having heard well over 1 million more words than their peers, having all that rich turn-taking and book talk. And you know what? Unsurprisingly, they're much more prepared to access the school curriculum. And they access it better in year 1, and they're able to decode better in year 2. By years 5 and 6, they've got more scientific knowledge than their peers, more knowledge about history, and they're better able to read text than their year 6 SATs. And then you get to secondary school, and those pupils who've had all that rich reading experience seemingly are academic. They're able to talk about text, they're able to talk about topics and draw upon lots of background knowledge. Our challenge is identifying those pupils from year 1 to year 11 who don't bring that experience. They don't bring that book talk, they don't bring that vocabulary. And so each time they're reading and writing, they find it that bit harder. And we see windows of that. You know, we can have labels of disadvantage, and often disadvantage correlates with less supportive language backgrounds, less supportive access to books because of affordability and more. But also we see just real specific instances, and we might need to use diagnostic assessment. Often people struggling in science, particularly disadvantaged pupils, Royal Society evidence indicates that their number one barrier is reading and accessing the language of science. So this is about a challenge that starts before us, but one we need to identify. And I'd ask this question: for every pupil in our school, do we have a good idea about their language experience outside the classroom, about their reading habits, about whether they use our school library, about their daily reading experience within the classroom too? So this is what we need to get underneath, because unless they can have access to this rich wealth of language, they don't access the curriculum, they end up not appearing academic, and they struggle. And you know, we see today when some pupils are doing greater depth writing in maths and some pupils aren't meeting that expected standard. Well, it's not all down to what happened outside the school gates or before school, but these factors matter. So it's trying to match and diagnose the issue. And that Matthew effect, that this happens over time. And one of the challenges, if you're teaching pupils in year 8 and they lack background knowledge, then every time they're reading a text, they're reading a PowerPoint, they're listening to an explanation, they're not quite piecing it together and remembering it. And it's why, you know, building our curriculum with a clear sequence and retrieving and coming back to key information and keywords is so important, because it overrides the barriers some of our pupils face.